here for a quick session recap. So, two important things to point out, two clues that we had about today's move that I've mentioned earlier in the week that I just want to reiterate because these are important context clues that we see repeatedly within price that can kind of help you get an understanding of what might be to come. So first one being on this particular session right through here, Wednesday, May 8th. Now, remember, we had just come off of a 3-day expansion move. This is 3 days of price expanding. As we know about price action and volatility, price expands and contracts. You'll see big expansion moves and then a period of contraction where it's just kind of choppy or in a range, and then another expansion move, and the cycle just repeats. That's all that price does. And so what we had on May 3rd, remember context, if you're wondering why I'm looking like a couple of weeks back, context is always super important, especially when we're looking at change in character, change in trend, things of that nature. It's important to understand where is price coming from, what did that move look like, and where can it go from here. And so Friday, May 3rd, we see that change in character. Monday, you get the follow through day. This was an important distinction because sellers have a good opportunity Monday morning to force some lower prices here if they are to remain in control of what was a daily time frame breakdown, right? So you have 3 days of expansion. You have an exhaustion day, meaning that buyers are a bit exhausted, not really showing that same type of range that we had from the 3 days prior, a much tighter session. And anytime you have this type of exhaustion bar, you want to see how strong are sellers going to be when they actually show up. And so what I had mentioned on this particular session, Wednesday, May 8th, was that we want to see if sellers can sustain prior day low, because if they can, then this would be a normal expected area for price to pull back. That would probably surprise no one. And so that's what we were looking for. Now, price did blip below Tuesday's low. And that was the first, this is another notable aspect, that was the first decent pullback that price had offered within the prior 4 days, essentially. So think about it like this, like if you miss the entirety of this 3-4 day move, you're looking for a pullback to get involved. Once that pullback comes, we want to see what is the depth of that pullback going to be, and then kind of get an assessment of, how eager are buyers to jump in based on how deep that pullback goes. Is it just going to be a little shallow pullback? Is it going to retrace 50% of the move? What's it looking like? And so this is the first pullback that we see price offer. It is pretty much instantly absorbed by buyers, right? Price just dips below that low, closes back into that prior day range. And so that was important because it just shows the strength of buyers, right? So then the following session, Thursday, we get that next expansion move. So you have 2 days of a breather, another leg higher, a little breakout of that near-term range, right? So then coming into yesterday, I had talked about the same thing. I had mentioned that we had seen this clue already, and we want to see if sellers actually materialize below what is 2 daily time frame shooting star candles, right? So if price pulls back down below 52.30 from this signal right through here, that's not really going to be all that surprising, right? You would expect that because that's what price action is showing us. Then when you get a move like this where price dips below and then is quickly absorbed back into that prior 2-day range and then up through the highs, showing another breakout of that near-term range, very similar to what we saw last week, right? So then that pretty much paves the way for this test of the 52.70, and then if that breaks, there's not really a lot of resistance until the all-time high, right? We've been focusing on 52.70 repeatedly this week. talking about that a number of different times, the importance of this area of resistance. And so again, as always, where's price coming from? Where can it go? Well, if price breaks your upside key resistance area, where's it going to go? It's just going to trade into that next area of resistance, which in this case is pretty much the all-time high. So that's where we're at right now. As far as tomorrow, it's pretty simple. We've got one primary reference point to be working with here on ES, and that's going to be the 53.33 all-time high level. So I'll be watching primarily the reaction versus the all-time high here in ES. I am expecting a slower session for tomorrow. Tends to be the norm after a big expansion move. So we'll see if we get that inside day tomorrow or what tomorrow is looking like. But definitely price is due for a breather here. Definitely is overdue for a red day. But again, I reiterate the comments that I had this morning and yesterday during the session recap. Just because price is overdue for something does not mean that we want to be positioning based on what price is overdue for, right? That is just an opinion. It's not really anything that is rooted in objective fact. And so as always, we just want to come into the session and looking objectively at what price is showing us, right? I like to say, be dumb, follow price. So if the trend is higher, if we're showing an intraday trend day, probably want to be really cautious with those shorts if you're trying them at all. Today is a day for me personally, once that 5270 is gone, shorts are out of the question. I would not even consider it. And so again, just keep those frameworks in mind. You'll see, especially with a move like this, you'll see a lot of chatter online about how it's overdone, this, that, and the other. It can't go higher. That type of rhetoric just does not pay anyone, does not put profitable trades in your account. So keep that in mind. Be dumb, follow price. Just look at what price action is showing you. For that, as always, we like the daily chart. 15 and 30 minute time frame charts can be incredibly strong. And then, of course, you just need your intraday for your entry. One of the cleanest entries right through here. Phenomenal for today on ES. Definitely want to study that 10 a.m. reversal time trade with that undercut of that post CPI low. Really, really nice Wyckoff spring right through there with VWAP to add. Phenomenal trade. So that was ES. Let's jump over to NQ, take a look at daily time frame chart. So the kind of the main area I was looking at here on NQ for today was this daily pivot right through here at 520, right around 500, 520, right? And we saw how well 520 was respected this morning. Definitely some selling activity there right here into 520. You could see post CPI price marking a high all through there, right? Now after this undercut here of that structure low that then reclaims with 10 a.m. reversal time, you have a little bit of that consolidation here. And again, once this makes a fresh session high, it's pretty much telling you that most likely it will be a trend day, making fresh highs after 10 a.m. That's a significant event for the intraday session. And so once we start to see that, again, you want to be really cautious with any short trades. And the best way to go about it, if you are wanting to fade the move, which personally I do not, but if that is something that you're interested in doing, you want some type of higher time frame confirmation. You want a signal that it's going to be on the 15 or 30 minute chart. Don't really have one here. We do have one right here at 12:30 p.m. that does not show any follow through, right? So you see the exhaustion right here at 12:30 just gets run through, right? So cautious, fading any type of trend day move. It's a recipe for losses. Now, as far as what we'll be looking for here on NQ tomorrow, very similar approach to ES. Let's see the reaction versus this all-time high here with the expectations remaining the same, expecting a bit of a slower session. So that's about it for ES and NQ. Pretty straightforward watch. Again, we want to see how price responds to the all-time high. Take it from there. We're now 10 consecutive sessions higher, so getting to be quite extreme. All right, hope everyone had a good sesh. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM in the Traders Think Tank. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care.